issues. Welcome to the China EVs and More podcast. We will open the room up at around the 40-minute mark to anyone who's keen to ask us any questions. So feel free to post them into X, LinkedIn, or YouTube. In the next hour or so, my co-host Lei Xing and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. And to our loyal listeners, welcome back. We ask that you smash that subscribe and like button so that you don't miss anything from us in the future. I'm confident that Lei and I are two of the most knowledgeable people in the world doing this, so help us get the word out about this show to others. My name is Tu Lee. I'm the managing director at Sino Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.substack.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. Apologies, Lei. I know you've been waiting patiently. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning to a technically challenged. This is your co-host, Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. And this is episode number 204. Bring your dollars is the theme of this episode. Tariffs and BYD again. Those are the two most the biggest topics that we're thinking of. BYD has been in the news almost constantly, and now the tariffs. I think what's the way to describe it? Do we put the nail on the coffin that this is going to stay for the long haul, and this is where the baseline that the global auto industry is confronting at least for the next 4 years. So we start off from there, and let's talk about tariffs first.
Okay.
So the 25%, Trump says it's permanent and it's on everything not made in the USA, imported into the US, including auto parts. So the order now is, I guess there were some, discussions and then delays again, and now it looks like it's going to be put into place on April 2nd, with the tariffs starting to be charged on April 3rd, and then the parts goes into effect on May 3rd. I believe that's the directive. And on top of that, there's the April 2nd of reciprocal tariffs. And on top of that, for China, we have the 100% EVs already, 100% tariffs on EVs already in place. So it didn't change. I think it didn't change that much for China on the whole vehicle import. It was irrelevant anyways. But Elon says something that Tesla was not unscathed because of parts involved in this, right? I think that was what he was alluding to. And the big three, I think the German automakers, Japanese, they're all having a headache right now.
So Elon wants to say that they're not unscathed, but clearly they have, and I'd written this in my newsletter, about 1 million units of capacity. Let's say around 800,000 units of capacity between Fremont and Austin Giga. So most of their vehicles that they sell into the United States, in North America for that fact, are built in the United States. Now,
100%.
So I'm looking at this again with my supply chain hat on, which I used to do for a living, and I would look at this is Tesla to a lesser extent, but the complexity of the product portfolios of each of the automakers, and I'm referring specifically to Stellantis, GM, and Ford, are much more complex. And I don't know. I would say 25% of the parts, and I'm guessing, completely guessing. So if somebody has a much better idea of the common parts across all of these products from GM, the common parts, and I'm talking like gas caps, I'm talking even tires, wheels, the buttons that you put on to unlock the door, those types of things, are those common across different products? And if they're all made in the United States, awesome. But if not, then what do we do? Okay. There's these different scenarios that the sourcing teams are going to go through. Does Lei button supplier have a facility in the United States? Because he currently ships my button from Mexico, okay, as part of a module or as part of a system, okay. But if he wants my business, he's going to need to move it to the United States. Now, is that realistic? Because he has excess capacity and he can move it quickly over. We just ship the tooling from Mexico to the United States. Or does he have to build a brand new facility? Because if that's the case, then it's not going to work for our timing. And number two, we're likely going to have to pay for some of that building out of the facility or the extra line. And so now I need to go to Lee Button Factory and see if they have excess capacity in the United States. And so they market test all the time anyways. So they should know right off the top of their heads who builds this component or a similar component in the United States. And the fact of the matter is it's optimized for the USMCA.
And the USMCA, if I understand it correctly, in this executive order, whether parts are compliant, also the tariffs could be different. Is that what I'm understanding? And also, if the imported somehow vehicle or components have U.S. content, then it's a bit complicated.
I think Trump says this at 100,000-foot level, and then his team, cabinet, his staff, then put all the pieces together. I think it's completely top down. We're going to do X. They don't care what the implications are. They don't actually do the research on the implications or collateral damage. Because remember here, a lot of the people that will be affected, although Sean Fain did tweet or write a letter of support.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's happy, but he's gritting his teeth as he writes that letter.
Exactly.
Because we know that they don't like each other.
Because the cost of manufacturing is going to go up. The cost for the consumers to buy is going to go up. And Trump even, I saw the news that he kind of told the big three, don't raise prices. He just does his own, thing. But I was looking at some of the data, right? Mexico, Japan, South Korea, Canada, Germany are the 5 countries that are most exposed. And I actually think.
Let me stop you there, Lei.
Yeah.
Because we've had a free trade agreement, generally speaking, with Canada for forever. And so we actually benefit from a free trade agreement with Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We don't with Mexico, except for the fact that we get cars that in theory are cheaper or from a pricing standpoint, because the cost base is lower in Mexico. Okay, I get that. But to tariff Canada, it's just nonsensical. So
Well, I mean that's the way it is right now.
yeah,
Well, it
yeah,
goes into effect.
you know,
Yeah, no,
you know this, but I guess I just had to say it.
no, I just think interesting. Actually, the most hurt. I was talking about the Japanese, the Germans, the Americans, Koreans. Well, Hyundai made that huge announcement, 21 billion.
So the one thing that I'm
It-
not clear of, and I didn't have time to do the research, the $20 billion, was that already announced and they're just repeating it, or is there new money? So that's what
I
I'm not clear
wasn't
about.
sure either, but that was what they announced. It might include what was already included, but I mean that's a huge investment, and I think came at the
Well,
right
remember
time. And it
that.
was in place many years. I think it was in place in 2021 or something, and now it's materializing. Which you know, uh,
Importantly,
yeah,
even if it's existing, the Trump team is going to take it and run with it as a
yeah,
huge win.
yeah,
This is working. This is working.
yeah. No, I was saying, the Japanese, Koreans, Americans, Germans. Actually, Germans are losing the most, or they have the most to lose, especially BMW Group. Why? Because they're exposed on all three continents. They're exposed because they ship EVs out of China into Europe. They're exposed because they import engines from Europe for cars that are made in the US. They're exposed because of the Canada Mexico tariffs. They're exposed because now the 25% also goes to the European side of it. So they were talking about this in the earnings that it'll affect 1% to 1.5 percentage point of their operating margins. Now this is going to take a further hit. So, and then I was reading that comment from Marmalade, and she had the audacity to say that it hurts consumers, it hurts businesses when she did it herself, right?
Yeah.
It always cringes.
So the
Yeah,
crazy thing is, Lei, is that we know strategically the Germans are getting hurt because of their inability, and this is more conceptual, their inability to do software to keep up with China EV Inc. And you just outlined how operationally now they're getting hurt
yeah,
because it's multiple layers. One layer is product driven, the other layer is operationally driven, where we need to be efficient. And the best example I have, and for the last 40, 50 years, it was Toyota. Okay. And they're still very operationally efficient, but the new bogey, or the new kind of leader in operational efficiency, should be BYD, or all the efficiency experts should be pointing to BYD, because you don't go from 500,000 units to likely over 5 million units in a 7-year time span without being able to manage your supply chain, manage your sourcing, manage your costs. And they're doubling down on R&D again. And so I don't know if you saw what I wrote on X. Ed Carson had tweeted about the U7 announcement, and I said the Germans just kind of threw up in their mouths a little bit when they saw the U7, and then
now
finally saw the price of the U7. So
now now there's the E7,
yeah, so
kind of the mid-size sedan coming out, and then yeah, and then they just announced another kind of a price cut, right, for a few of their Ocean lineups.
and I
And
think
then,
we should also point out that Trump was asked, "Hey, did Elon ask you for anything? Or does he ask you for favors?" And Trump said no. But we can't help but think that maybe he doesn't need to ask. Maybe the Trump administration knows, and to the benefit of Elon and Tesla, they made certain carve outs in his language and maybe we don't know. Maybe he asked Elon, how long would it take you if your bill of materials is 100 parts and 20 parts come from Mexico or Canada or from outside of the United States? How long would it take you to resource these parts? And he was like, oh, maybe 3 months, 6 months. So maybe he talked to Elon like that.
Yeah, I mean, well before Trump. I mean, in the early days, Elon's from an operational perspective, he's a big proponent of produce where you sell. So that kind of helped, and that's what actually BYD is following suit with just now this report of them setting up a 10 billion plan in India. And that this is the most recent. And then I mean, they're right there. I looked at some numbers. So that officially they're expecting 5.5 million, and some are predicting they can do 6.5 next year and potentially 10 million in 2030. Oh, I saw the message.
Yeah, I'm experimenting as we are live streaming.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then they have 8 ships on order, 4 ships already shipped, and then 4 ships coming this year as they target 800,000 in export. Right, we saw the numbers, earnings numbers, the revenues topped Tesla over 100 billion in revenues.
Tesla's 95. I want to say
95-ish, just under 100 billion.
And let's repeat some other numbers that if you all have been watching in the past, you know this, but I think it's worth repeating. BYD was 4.27 million. 38% of their vehicles were BEVs. So about 1.6 million of those 4.27 were battery electric. So BYD is right on the heels of Tesla. This year, they'll more than likely sell more battery electric vehicles because there's Tesla stands out there that don't want us to count the PHEVs. Fine.
Oh, no question.
Fine. Yeah. And so internally, according to CNEV Post and our friend Yahweh, BYD is looking at 5.5 million units. So remember, I talked about operational efficiency. They're at 5.5 million units. And remember that a lot of their vehicles, they build about 70% of their own components. Okay. Right now, it's a huge asset for them to have that much control. But this is where, and it's sometime in the future, growth slows. And when you're that vertically integrated, it creates other types of issues. So how he's going to manage that, especially because of this protectionism, Lei. So he's going to have to build in Europe, in Latin America, in South America, in Turkey, in Poland, I think, in Hungary or whatever. And so we've already agreed that Wang Chuanfu should be stood up as one of the best managers of the 21st century so far. Phase 2 is going to be as growth kind of plateaus, specifically in the China market, and he's looking for growth in these other markets. He's going to build locally. We know that strategy for him, or BYD anyways. And then being able to manage the transition from 90% domestic sales to maybe 70% domestic sales and 30%. And again, the base is growing. So it's not like, okay, I'm at 5.5 million and I stop. We agree that they have the potential to beat Toyota eventually in vehicle sales. So they'd be well over 10 million units then. So as the base grows and they're selling 30%, 35% of their vehicles outside of China, we're talking 3-4 million units. Okay. And to your point, Lei, then we get into a BMW scenario where they're building in all these different regions with the bulk of their production still in China, though. So
Yeah, so going forward, if those plans, overseas plans materialize, and it won't be smooth sailing, first of all, then they could be on their way to 10 million. But it's not going to be easy. But the last year was obviously a year of honor for BYD, pun intended, because honor launch of honor editions, that was part of the price war tactic. Some of the numbers you mentioned, I want to peel the onions back a little bit. So yeah, the BEV sales were just below Tesla's 1.79 million. Uh, Interestingly enough, 80% of their sales were below 200,000 RMB. So
Boom.
mostly coming out of the BYD namesake brand. And the other three brands actually accounted for less than 5% of sales. They export about 10% of vehicles, but those 10% of vehicles accounted for 29% of revenues. Okay. So, and their gross margins are, around 20%. Of the plugins, China sold a little bit over 5 million plugins. BYD was almost half of it,
Right.
2.5 million. Okay. So, top 10 NEV models. Guess how many were BYD?
5.
8.
8. I was gonna say 7. I was gonna say 7.
Just some of the numbers I put down, of their earnings, and they actually, among Tesla, Li Auto, NIO, their R&D expend was 53 billion RMB in 2024, and they're in over 100 plus countries and regions.
For all intents
Uh,
and purposes, to
and,
the viewers and listeners, let's say it's $1 buys me about 7 RMB.
yeah, yeah,
So when Lei says 56 million, it's about $8 billion.
yeah. So, and then their goal this year is to have 60% of sales with the highway NOA feature, basically the Gaza IC, which they're launching as we speak, these different models, but not without challenges. One of those is the Financial Times report of this investigation into the Hungarian plant. I'm
Right.
sure you saw that.
Yeah.
The other one is the scrutiny over in Brazil. And I think the third one is what I think of Denza, Fang Cheng Bao, Yangwang. It's going to be difficult to manage. And I won't be surprised if BYD pulls a Geely group tactic of somehow consolidating those brands.
Here's the irony, Lei.
So,
I don't think the Chinese. Well, let me say this carefully. I think it's going to be more challenging for BYD to sell a premium vehicle in China because most Chinese consumers know them as a 200,000 and below. It doesn't matter if it's a Yangwang or Fang Cheng Bao. I think Denza has an opportunity to kind of carve itself out because the vehicles are great and the brand isn't as closely associated to BYD as a Yangwang and a Fang Cheng Bao. So I think the Yangwang and the Fang Cheng Bao, especially if they can undercut the 7 Series, the EQS, the i7, or the i7, um, they might have a better chance of success in Europe. The premium BYD brands.
which they're launching. I think Denza they're launching. Fang Cheng Bao is already on sale. But Denza, I think, has been stuck on 10,000 a month, like forever, even though they have launched several new models.
Can you give our viewers the background on how Denza came to be?
BYD, Mercedes. That's the history. And then Mercedes backed out. So now it's all BYD. And that was founded in 2010.
So early Denza vehicles had a badge that said Denza designed by Mercedes, I want to
Yeah,
say,
styled by Mercedes or
or
something.
styled by Mercedes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the Denza, is it the Z9? Is it the
Z9, there's the Z9 GT, and then they just launched the N9, as we know.
Z9 GT looks great, by the way.
But the bulk of their sales so far is still the D9, the MPV. So it's something to watch. Yangwang, the Yangwang U7, I think people expect it to be another one of those million RMB model, like the U8, the SUV. But
what was a little bit surprising to me about the U7? So for everyone, this week, BYD had another press event. I won't say BYD. I'll say Wang Chuanfu, because it wasn't a BYD press event. It was a Yangwang press event. And this is the third press event in the last 6 weeks, I want to say 6 or 7 weeks. The first being the announcement of God's Eye being standard on most of their vehicles this year across the brands. The second was the ultra fast charging, and then the third was on Monday or Tuesday, and where they unveiled the U7. So we already knew the U7 was coming. There's already videos about it, but now it is unveiled. They're going to start delivering it to customers, and the pricing was 680,000. So
90,000, roughly $80,000, $90,000.
And your point is that the U8, U9,
U9
U8,
is the other sports car. Sports
right?
EV, yeah.
So everyone was speculating the U7 sedan was going to be about $1 million, and I looked. The dimensions are effectively the same footprint as an EQS and an i7, so they are targeting. And the back seat is like first class in an airplane, where the seats are reclining and things like that. And the one thing that surprised me, Lei, is that it doesn't have the ultra fast charging.
Well, you can't have everything. But BYD seems to put all of this world feature into it, into these, the Yunnan Z and the quad motor, and this is the first NEV with a flat engine in the world. Boxer engine, is it what it's called? That Porsche know.
A few more statistics, because I had written them down in my newsletter. So 680,000. It'll be in a BEV and a PHEV. Shoot, I forget. Oh, it has crab walking and tank turns, because there's 4 motors, one at each of the wheels. And we've been seeing on Chinese social a lot of those videos now of Denzas and Yangwangs doing the effectively parallel parking.
Yeah, I said that they redefined parallel parking, because you don't have to go back.
Oh man,
You just slide in.
it's amazing, because I started to think more broadly about some of their announcements. I thought pretty broadly right away about the God's Eye announcement, how someone in Thailand is now going to be able to have intelligent driving, when I don't think the Thai government was looking at something like that for quite some time. But the charging, that could put swapping on its heels. That could put oil companies on its heels. And so they're disrupting more than just the automotive space.
Yeah.
And I haven't spoken to any, let's say, European, okay? And when I say European, I mean German. I haven't spoken to any German executive, automotive executive, that has given me any sense that they get it. I still don't think they get it. I feel like they think it's impossible for this to be happening. They're still in disbelief, as opposed to, those 5 phases of acceptance or something like that. Like, boom, and they still seem to be in a little bit of denial.
Well, my perspective is they get it and they're trying hard, as I've, but how much bolder they can be is something else. By the way, the starting price of the U7 is 628,000.
Yes. So sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, and then the 4-seater flagship is 708,000. So, yeah, just under $100,000.
Here, I just pulled up my newsletter. So let me see here. Oh, so PHEV, BEV, 4 and 5 seats. So you can get captain's chairs in the back seat, or you can get a bench.
Yeah.
1,300 horsepower. 1,300 horsepower.
So almost,
you're going to need new tires every 6 months, basically.
I mean, it could also be a competitor to the Xiaomi SU7 Ultra.
Yeah, for sure.
Price point and the performance wise.
That just means that Lei Xing is going to give everybody some money back when the Ultra starts delivering. That's all that means.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I wanted to talk to you about is they seem to have a ClearMotion competitor now too.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the kind of, whether you're dedicated to do what ClearMotion does, or you have a BYD that can basically do what some of the previous tier 1, the well-known global tier 1 suppliers did.
Well, ClearMotion is now a modern day tier 1.
Yeah. But companies like a Baolong, right? The magic carpet that Li Auto has, it's a domestic supplier, well known.
So for those that are wondering, ClearMotion was a spin out from MIT, and they do body control systems, and they have a huge win with NIO and the ET9. So it's more of a halo feature,
which
for
is
the ET9.
Delivering tomorrow, China time. So
Jeffrey, I don't know what color did you order, Jeffrey, when you got your ET9? And it has the God's Eye A, which has the 3 LiDAR, and I'm talking about the U7. 2 NVIDIA chips that equal total of 508 tops.
I believe it's also got Hesai LiDARs.
Yeah, 450 miles of range.
3 LiDARs. Yeah.
For the BEV. And 625 miles of range on the PHEV. So I didn't have time to do side-by-sides with the EQS and the i7, but I'll take a look to see where they're at. But in China, the i7 and EQS are, I want to say, almost 1.5 times as expensive.
Yeah, they're niche.
So,
and the other thing I just today is the 1-year anniversary of the launch of the Xiaomi SU7. A year ago, the SU7 launched, and a year later, roughly, I'd say 200,000 units have been delivered. One model from a newbie. And this did you see this Speed guy, the YouTube KOL? He's in China now, live streaming, and he's on his Xiaomi Ultra, It was like this thing's $70,000, even better than my $250,000 Lamborghini Huracan. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's weird. I still find it weird uh, that more people are poo-pooing, or I won't say more. People are poo-pooing Chinese products and things like that, but you and I have never met them in China. So I think it's hard to really take people seriously unless you go over there and sit behind a car. And if you want to pick it apart because you've sat in the vehicle, driven the vehicle, and understand how traffic works in China, when you're specifically talking about intelligent driving, then I'm going to give you kudos. But don't be lazy, man, and sit in your office in freaking California or New York and think that people are going to take you seriously when you're poo-pooing, what's going on in China, and point to subsidies, point to this, point to that. Man, at the end of the day, these people are working their butts off. And so and I always bring up the fact that Tesla vehicles, most of them have subsidies on them. Tesla's factory in Fremont was effectively free. It was a $40 million plant. It's a plant that builds hundreds of thousands of cars that they bought for $40 million. That should have cost them well over $1 billion. So
yeah, I mean, how do you make an apples to apples comparison? That's the point.
And the company in my backyard, General Motors, they got bailed out by the U.S. government. So Volkswagen is owned 17% is owned by a state.
Lower Saxony.
So how is that not state owned? Nobody ever calls Volkswagen state owned. No one. So, anyways, I digress. So let's do this because I see a chart that I put in the newsletter. Mexico is number 1 for vehicles imported into the United States. Japan is number 2. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Japan
Korea
is number 2 in value. South Korea
value,
is number
yes.
2 in volume. So, and then everyone else is the same. Yeah. Canada,
so
Germany, number 4 and 5. Yeah.
So that means that Toyota ships a lot of Lexuses and they ship a lot of high-end SUVs over, probably. So I could be wrong on the SUV side. Where do they build the 4Runner? Where do they build the Land Cruiser? I'll find out and I'll let everybody know.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about, man?
No, I think these were the 2 most important topics this week. And then we're at the end of March, which means we're gonna see Q1 numbers coming out in a few days.
Well, you did say that Li Auto did not do weekly numbers.
Well,
how long do you think that's going to you think that's going to last a long time, or do you think
as long as CAAM has put out that notice and called it out, that doesn't mean that others won't put it out.
Okay.
But I think at least Li Auto is going to do it, only put their own numbers out on a weekly basis.
And we should acknowledge, since we're winding down, this is, and again, apologies for being late, but this is going to be a short one unless people have questions, and I'll take a look at the comments. But I know Jeffrey must have a bit of anxiety because NIO is going to sell more of its company to the public. I think $450 million are looking at raising from the external market. So,
No, I think recently Neil Li Bin, he had this long interview with a group of media, and I saw some of those transcripts, and it really meant to me that he's like, you know, this is the year we have to worry in our 11th year. We're in our 11th year, and the, a goal is a goal. Q4 breaking even, doubling sales, those are still in place. If they don't do it, I get the sense that is there's we can't say this and then we don't do it, and next year, okay, we're going to do it in 2026, we're going to do it in 2027. That doesn't work. So there's 9 months left. Let's get going. I don't know what happens after that if they don't meet their targets, the biggest targets, doubling sales and breaking even in Q4. It's
This
scary,
is where I
man.
really,
Yeah.
this is where I really have to give GM a lot of credit with the $30,000 Equinox EV. They knew they had to go low, and for all of the hiccups that they've had up until this point, they do have a viable. I've driven the Equinox EV. You should check it out. Just so you get an idea of what 30,000 buys you in the United
Mhm.
States before we go back to China and get in every single BYD vehicle that's under $30,000. But Ford doesn't have a $30,000 EV. Stellantis is talking about having a $30,000 EV, but
Well, Ford is developing one. Hopefully, there's $30,000. The Skunk Works.
yeah, 30,000 is a low number even for China. So, because most of those companies in China, they're not making money off of that $30,000 car.
And with the tariffs, I don't know how to make that possible. $30,000 EV in the
And
US.
I guess this is kind of random. And I'm jumping around. You said 29% of their profits or revenue,
Revenues
BYDs, anyways,
come
revenues.
from the 10% of export,
Yeah. So
400,000 units. So,
how that number is going to evolve for BYD because of the tariffs
yeah,
is going to be important for us to keep an eye on.
yeah.
Okay. And will BYD employ the same strategy that it's employed in China, where it's like, I'm just going to make it super painful for every participant in every market segment that my competitors compete with me in? That's what they're doing. They're just making it as painful as possible. And Wang Chongfu is not looking at, I need to make this much profit every quarter. He's looking at, what's my trajectory in order to get to 10 million, 12 million units? And then he's looking at, who do I need to push out of the market?
Yeah.
So let's take a look. I'll read some of these. Tariff the planet, tariff everything. Ugh, that's what Jeffrey wrote. And Jeffrey wrote, DJT, simply, I think that's Donald J. Trump for those that, for the non-Americans. Understand the extreme complication and cost that involves the concept. This concept either, and he's talking about tariffs, he backs off this, or his entire team does not understand worldwide supply chain and likely locks Elon in the closest. Elon in the closest during these conversations. More power to China. And EVCO, China is likely planting more corn for all the popcorn they will be popping to watch this clown show. Anyways,
Oh boy.
Mike, I will tell you offline a little bit about this shirt next time I see you. BYD is the new Godzilla. That's Jeffrey again. And then Mike, if US EVs are 5 years behind China today, after 4 years of tariffs, we'll be 20 years behind. So, and so
Fun takes.
So SPX is Aston Martin, a sponsor. Unfortunately, they are not. Although I have not approached them, perhaps they'd be interested in sponsoring. But there's a funny story behind these shirts. I told Lei about them. I have a few other ones too that I'll aware.
They're
I didn't think they were
interchangeable,
going to
right?
be.
You can
Yeah, I didn't
strap
think
them
they were
on.
going to be that interested. No, so no Velcro.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but that makes a lot more sense, anyways.
Uh,
And then VW sold more sausages than cars, and I think Jeffrey's joking, but he said, "Kill me." I think he wrote that right after I said Neo is selling more shares.
yeah, well,
um,
they're below $4 again, right? I
yeah.
think, yeah,
So,
just stuck there forever. Um,
let me see here. I will look at LinkedIn. Are there any? Okay, Felix, what's going on, buddy? Felix Hamer is on.
oh, I just remembered as we maybe last thing we'll mention is as we get closer to the Shanghai Auto Show, a few of what's been happening of the foreign automakers, some of the announcement. One that stood out was BMW Group putting Alibaba's big model into their upcoming Neue Klasse, the iX3, locally produced starting next year, and they'll show something at the Shanghai Auto Show of this integrated smart cockpit with these type of Chinese AI insight. Let's just say that, and expect this to happen more as we get to these more of these
German
announcements.
German
Right.
innovation or German digital innovation with Chinese characteristics.
Yeah, like I said, the Germans are the hardest trying to become more Chinese, more than any other foreign brands or automakers in China. I mean, look at right. Ola was at the China Development Forum. Oliver Zipse was at the China Development Forum, and all they said was how much of the OS development for the Chinese market was led by the local team. And I just speaking of OS, Li Auto just open sourced their Halo OS. Uh, that was an interesting move. So
I have to. There was a post this week on LinkedIn where the guy was like, because he was posting as a freaking European guy, posting about BYD, and then in second place, Tesla being the fastest charging vehicles, and then our friend from Lucid, he kindly interjected that no, Lucid is the fastest charging American car company. And so it's just like, dude, don't be so lazy that whoever posts this stuff, you need to be accurate or
well,
you
we're
need to
even not
update.
accurate sometimes. So
But we admit it, right? I'm I don't have that kind of ego where it's like, because we're just trying to keep up with all the information. And that's why it takes two of us. But
yeah,
I don't have any problem saying that I made a mistake in last week's episode. But if people tell me I make a mistake, I'll try to correct myself in the following episode. But it is that just seems to be lazy, you know. Um,
yeah.
and then let me see here. Here's Pankaj just wrote, any potential upside for China auto from all these tariff mess? Looks like any plans for China auto manufacturing in Mexico will be delayed. Um, I'll say this. I'll say that because the Chinese still primarily manufacture in China, they don't have a lot of capital assets outside of China. And so they can wait this out because Trump is technically only going to be in office for 4 years. And you can even look at the fact that in 2 years, we're going to have an election on the House side and some of the Senate. So all this power that he has, he's upsetting a good portion of the U.S. population. So will he be unencumbered? in 2 years? That's the question. And BYD doesn't want to do this, but they're in the cat seat because they do have the flexibility. The China market is still growing, so even if they focus a little bit less on the foreign markets over the next couple of years, I think they're going to be fine. Now, the Xpongs and the Neos, to a lesser extent, the Li Autos, they need sales to really build outside of China. But I think they could turn complications into opportunity. What do you think, Lei?
Yeah, I mean, I somewhat agree. The North American region as a market is the most lucrative, but also the last frontier of all the Chinese who have the ambition to be global. So now their focus is, besides China, is basically other regions of the world, and it's everywhere else other than North America for now, given the tariffs. And that discussions with Europe is still going about the tariffs there. There's no way that even the discussions can be had because Trump is pretty firm. And
But this is more about geopolitics, but it pushes Europe closer to China.
Yeah, I mean the activities are still pretty, it's right there. Whether it be Xpeng, whether it be anybody else, BYD, possibly not only BYD but some of these other ones scouting for production in Europe. And that also it comes back to what CATL and Goshen has been doing in the first place, because one, the U.S. automakers, they want to produce more affordable EVs. They need their help. And second, it's to circumvent the kind of the tariffs thing. But it's facing local pushback. Even if Trump welcomes Chinese investment, welcomes Chinese manufacturing and jobs, then the stigma of China or CCP is always there.
No, I disagree. I think Trump, if he turns 180 degrees, he's gonna be like, "Oh, they're our friend. Oh, we love
he
China.
said that.
We love."
I mean, he says she's his good friend.
So I think he can turn on a dime, and his blind followers will still follow him. And it's the weirdest thing because this gets me wondering, what will Sean Fain's letter be then?
Yeah, it'll be the
it's
other
not
way
going to be, "We welcome these Chinese companies." He's not going to write that because they're not going to be union workers.
Right.
And so one thing that Felix did right, and I want to hammer this home because this is why it's important to be a leader, or at least be a major player on the clean energy side. He writes, you know what's funny? Thanks to NIO and Jeffrey, you can take some pride out of this. Thanks to NIO, Amsterdam has dirt cheap 500 kilowatt charging.
Yeah, I saw that post about what was it? 30 cents euros per kilowatt hour or something.
But then it says Felix had some challenges with the Lucid when he borrowed it, and went to take the Lucid there, and it was utterly disappointing. So I think there's going to be growing pains whenever there's new technology. After losing percent after percent with giving it lots of preheating time. So yeah. Lucid still doesn't have that many units on the road, so I think they're their list of bugs is pretty short still, with with regards to the air, and then the gravity is starting delivery, but I can't imagine there are that many gravities on the road in the wild yet.
Yeah.
So, anyways, hey, that's all I have, man.
Yeah, same here.
It's important for everyone in the United States that you watch my Spartans play tonight at 9:00. So go green.
It looks like all the top teams has won so far. So
yeah, Duke, Cooper Flag had 30 points
Yeah.
last night. Kid's a stud, man.
Yeah.
Kid is a stud. So and he's must see TV. Really exciting player. Anyways, I should mention I went to Cleveland on Sunday to watch Michigan State play. So it's a 3-hour drive, and the boys, Annie, we all went to the game. We had great seats, good game. We were losing it the first half, and then we took over in the second half. We won, which got them into the Sweet 16. So it's Izzo's 27th year, and for those that are not paying attention, I just want to talk about this for a second. But anyways, so they're playing tonight to be part of the final, the grade 8. So anyways, hey, Lei, man, I will talk with you on DMs, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We will talk with you all next week.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
All right. No.